Hi, and welcome back to the P.E.A.R podcast, where our goal is to share the stories of women who have pivoted, explored opportunities, adapted to circumstances, and repositioned themselves for success, no matter what life or business puts in their path. Today is going to be a solo episode, and I am Dr. Jillian Starman, and I am the host of the P.E.A.R podcast. And whether you have been listening since the beginning, when we started back in January, or you have just discovered this podcast, I am so glad that you're here. Periodically, I like to take time to reflect back on some of the conversations that I've had with my guests and share some of the nuggets of wisdom that we have gleaned from their stories. Over the past several episodes, I have had the privilege of sitting down with 6 incredible women. Each have come from a different background with a unique story and shared some of their life lessons that were deeply personal to them. On the surface, some of these conversations seem very different, but as I listened, I realized something interesting. These weren't 6 different stories. They were 6 different illustrations of a journey of becoming. So today I'd like to take a step back from these individual interviews and explore what they have collectively taught us. Because sometimes our greatest wisdom isn't found in just one conversation. It's found in the patterns that emerge when we connect them together. I would like to visit these conversations again, not just to simply remember what was said, but to uncover what they might be teaching us about our own lives from 5 themes that flowed through these episodes. The first theme was the strongest one that came to the surface, and it was about purpose. Carla reminded us about aligning purpose with passion. Anya challenged us to recognize that purpose often changes through different seasons of life. And Nancy demonstrated what purpose looks like in action when she advocated for what she wanted, instead of simply accepting what was handed to her. What struck me is none of these women described purpose as a destination. They described it as something that evolved. So many people, I think, spend years asking, what is my purpose? Perhaps a better question is, who am I becoming? I have learned myself that purpose rarely arrives fully formed. It unfolds one decision, one relationship, one courageous conversation, and one unexpected opportunity at a time. Do you think of purpose as something that is waiting somewhere ahead of you? Or do you believe it's already unfolding in the choices that you're making today? It's an interesting thing to think about. The second theme I noticed was introduced by Anya around the beautiful idea that life has seasons. Some seasons are about building, others are about healing, some are about learning, and others are about letting go. Every one of my guests described a different season. Carla embraced pivotal moments. Nancy navigated professional growth. Kenyatta shared how she learned through mistakes. Carrie focused on strengthening leadership, and Letitia reflected on lessons that began long before her career started. Sometimes we have a tendency to compare ourselves to other people who are simply living in a different season. But comparison can often leave us feeling incomplete and inadequate. So instead of asking, why am I not where she is? Perhaps we can ask, what is this season trying to teach me? And focus more on where we are in our life rather than on others. The third theme I recognized focused on courage. I think that often when we hear the word courage, we imagine very dramatic moments that prove that we are courageous. But these conversations painted a very different picture. Nancy demonstrated courage by asking for flexibility. Carrie demonstrated courage by trusting others enough to delegate to them. Letitia demonstrated courage by refusing to let difficult beginnings define her future. These aren't headline moments, they're everyday decisions. And perhaps that kind of courage is the most thing that we need in our life. Courage to ask, courage to learn, courage to trust, and courage to begin again. As you listen or watch this podcast, think about what ordinary act of courage you will discover or uncover this week. The fourth theme around the importance of relationships appeared over again as well. Kenyatta reminded us of the importance of networking and mentoring. Carrie highlighted the value in collaboration. Nancy demonstrated the significance of partnerships inside an organization. And Carla's reflection on balancing family responsibilities showed us that success rarely happens in isolation. Many women have been taught to prove themselves independently, but every successful woman I've interviewed has described success differently. Not as independence, but as interdependence. Success grows in conversations, in mentors, in collaborators, and in communities that encourage us to keep going. Relationships matter. Who helps you become your best self? And just as importantly, whose journey are you shaping? As we position ourselves within communities, we have those around us who we help and who help us. The last theme came from my interview with Letitia as she shared her early experiences and how they shaped her work ethic. And from Kenyatta, who spoke about learning through mistakes and the resilience it needs to be able to continue on. Each guest reflected on moments that could have become barriers. Instead, they became teachers. That is a very important distinction. We often wish that we can erase difficult experiences, yet many of our greatest strengths are born because of being part of them. Our past might explain where we are today, but it doesn't define us. Think about what lessons from your past continue to strengthen you as the person you're becoming today. What barriers have you overcome? What stumbling block have you stepped onto and turned it into a stepping stone onto your next success? As I reflected over these 6 remarkable conversations, I noticed something else. Not one of these women described life as a straight line. There were pivots, there were unexpected turns, there were family priorities, career transitions, and moments of uncertainty, along with some new opportunities. And isn't that exactly what the P.E.A.R podcast is all about? We pivot, we explore, we reposition, and we adapt. These aren't just words. These are invitations to pivot when life changes, to explore possibilities when we never have considered them before, to adapt to circumstances as they shift, and to reposition ourselves around what matters the most. Perhaps that's what leadership really is all about. It's not having all the answers, but remaining willing to grow, to learn, and to become who we are meant to be. I hope that today's episode encouraged you to pause long enough to recognize the wisdom that's already unfolding in your story. If these conversations have reminded us of anything, it's that growth isn't about becoming someone else or like someone else. It's about becoming more fully ourselves. If you enjoyed this conversation, I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel, to share the episode with someone who might need to hear it, and continue the conversation with us. Put your comments below so that we can connect with you. As I finish up this episode today, I'd like to leave you with a few questions. Not because I have the answers, but because a good question often makes us change into an easy answer. And I would encourage you to think about what season you're living in right now. What are you being, or where are you being invited to grow? Who can help you take that next step? And perhaps the biggest question of all, who are you becoming? Thank you so much for joining me today and on this journey through the podcast. And until next time, keep pivoting, exploring opportunities, adapting to circumstances, and repositioning yourself for success. I will see you in the next episode.